Is all hope lost to get your ex back? This is Coach Lee, and in this video, going to do my best to answer that question. At the moment of the breakup, an ex can say some really hurtful things and some things that seem to sound like there's an end to any hope and that there's no possible way the two of you could get back together, that their mind has been made up. It seems like it's all been decided and that it's just over. And so people will say in comments on my YouTube channel, or they'll email me, or in a coaching call, they'll say, well, he said this, so I don't think there's any chance. Or she said this, so it's over now. There's no hope. I might as well give up. And the first thing that I want you to keep in mind is that we already know that your ex's heart is not where we want it to be. If it was where you wanted it to be, they wouldn't be breaking up with you. They wouldn't have broken up with you. And so that's not anything new. It feels like new information. It feels like that since they said it's never going to happen, that's something that's going to change things for the worse, even though the breakup itself says they don't think anything's there and they don't think anything's going to happen. And so words to the effect of it's never going to happen, there's no chance, this is over for good, don't really mean anything more. Of course they think it's over for good. That's why they broke up with you. And so you don't need to pile on yourself any more than is truly necessary. As I've said in other videos, a lot of this, so much of this, is conceptual. Your ex thinks they want a breakup. And if it's early on in the process, they don't know. They really are basing it on something that they think sounds good, they think makes sense, but they haven't experienced it yet. And even if they're a few weeks out, even really a couple of months out, is not a true picture of it. They have to lose you because that's what they think that they want. Have you ever thought that something just sounded wonderful and exactly what you wanted, and then you got it and it was disappointing? All that anticipation, thinking it was going to be a great experience, thinking it was going to be a lot of fun, thinking it was going to be meaningful, and it turned out a flop. It wasn't at all what you were thinking. And so that's where a lot of times someone can find themselves when they break up with someone. It sounds like a good idea, especially if you two weren't getting along or if it had faded. The relationship, the feelings, the passion, the emotion, if it had faded, which it will. And that's what a lot of people have to learn. And you see, they learn that a lot of times when they realize they could lose you. Yes, new relationships can have that passionate firework experience called limerence. And I have a video about that. It's a real thing. People experience it. But it will fade. When you just think that that means the relationship has to be over, sometimes it means that person has to learn. They have to learn, first of all, where you really belong in their life. Because at the moment, it's simply that you're not an emotional high anymore. That's the experience with some people. Especially if you've heard anything from this person like, I just don't feel the same, or love has faded, or I fell out of love with you, or I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Those kinds of things, especially if they're wanting to kind of stay friends or be in touch, that means there's really something there, but the excitement, the spark part of it has subsided. And one of the things we learn as adults is that relationships will fade from being based on passion and excitement to commitment and companionship and the feeling of family. And whereas those feelings of excitement, those feelings of passion can return and make an appearance again here and there, it does not have the capacity to sustain the relationship permanently. There has to be that commitment, that companionship, feeling of family. And your ex can learn that. And that's what no contact can actually do, because when they have to actually come face to face with the concept of losing you, because when they break up with you, make no mistake, they're not losing you. They're giving you away. It's a different feeling. When the person breaks up with you, they have control. The situation is stable because they're in charge of it. They're calling the shots. So they're not losing anything. It's a completely different feeling. When you make the decision, when you choose it, it can have pain. It can be difficult, especially if you know you're hurting the other person. And this person probably wished that they could do this without hurting you. They just wanted to get it over with, but they felt in control. The only way they can lose that control and they can actually feel at least the possibility that they could lose you is if you give them a preview of that. You disappear to where they don't know what's going on with you. They haven't heard from you. And so there's multiple factors that come into play in that, first of all, they're not seeing you every day, which gives them a break because sometimes people just need a refreshing. In other words, the immature physical side of us that has a favorite song on Spotify, but then after we've heard it 11 times, we want to listen to another song. That affects us in all areas of life. And so that's why it's good every now and then to just kind of do your own thing for a little bit and come back together. Not because you're getting tired of each other and you don't love each other, but simply because there's part of you that kind of likes a change of scenery every now and then. And so it gives them that. But after that, after they've had a big swallow of a glass of that, it can turn into missing you, seeing that there was a place that they valued that you filled, that you only filled. And that's where they can start having to have a conversation with themselves. Why are you not contacting them? And then we get into the complexity of attraction in that when they broke up with you, they felt so attractive. Even if they were attracted to you and liked what they saw physically, liked what they felt emotionally, liked the intellectual discussion, the process of breaking up with you makes them feel like their level of attractiveness goes up and yours goes down. And when you don't chase them, it invalidates that. Because if that were right, in their mind, if that were right, if they were that much more attractive than you and your attraction fell, and that's what it feels like when they break up with you, no matter what they say. But if that was right, then you would be coming after them. You would be chasing them because they just deserve all this validation because they are so sexy and awesome, and you should be chasing them. That's what they feel. They don't think those words, but there is that feeling. And that's where it at least makes them step back and reevaluate what they feel in terms of attraction. You become a little bit more valuable. And that might not sound like your favorite thing. It sounds a little shallow. You wish that it wasn't like that it was more based on companionship and commitment and love and not attraction. But humans are funny creatures. We are complex, multi-dimensional creatures. We're mind, body, and spirit. And those things operate together sometimes. And sometimes we even confuse ourselves. What we want to do is get them to a place where some of those deeper things can come back to life. But sometimes it takes some of the superficial things for that to have a chance. And so sometimes it starts simply with them questioning their level of attractiveness and then having to also consider that they haven't heard from you. And that could mean that you are, quote, moving on. That famous phrase that no one can really describe, except that you aren't pining after them or hurting, and that maybe you're open to the possibility of being in a relationship with someone else. But if they can see that you could move on, which no contact shows them, you can stay away. And if they see that, if they witness you do that, then they can believe you can move on. That's when finally, they get to actually experience a real breakup. They get to experience being without you. Let's see how they handle that, because that is when most people will come back, if they're going to come back. And before I get into the next topic on this, take a quick second, click the subscribe button below so you can be notified when I have more videos like this. So when your ex says there's no chance, I'm done, I'm moving on, they're not even able to speak for themselves in that way because they don't know how they're going to feel after they really experience the breakup. And you've got to let them do that, even though it's difficult. You've got to let them go through that, or else you are very unlikely to get back together with them, first of all. But second of all, if they were to come back, it is far more likely to be temporary because they haven't learned the lesson. The lesson is that when they broke up with you, when they left you and you two were apart and they thought they were going to lose you, they didn't like it. It was a bad thing and they wanted you back. That's a lesson they can carry with them. And that's what actually gives you the potential of having a long-term relationship. Take a look at my emergency breakup kit. There's a link to it in the description below. It's a powerful culmination of my 20 years in the relationship coaching service and can help you get your ex back. And one of the things that I talk about in there is what happens when you two actually start talking again and your ex is considering getting back together with you. That's when you can undo all this progress you've made, and you don't want to do that. How you undo that progress? Well, that's when if they come to you and they tell you they're thinking about getting back together or that they miss you, something like that, a lot of that is baiting you, especially if they say they miss you. They're wanting to hear you say that you miss them back. And they're testing you, whether they know it or not, because if you just instantly say, I miss you too, you're okay, but you've balanced things out some. If you start telling them how badly you've missed them and how you've cried and you've been miserable and life has lost its meaning and that you dwell in darkness without them, then you have flipped the totem pole again to where their attractiveness goes back to where it was and yours falls down to where it was, and they say, oh, that's why I did this. There's that feeling again that I don't want this. So you want to make sure you stay away from that when your ex is starting to move towards you. So if they do say they miss you, it's okay to say you miss them too. It's really hard to get around because if you act like you haven't, they're going to think you're faking it and that you're trying to play some kind of mind game with them. And that's just going to make you look bad and that's going to lower your attractiveness. But don't go beyond what they say. Match them or come just underneath that. But don't try to outdo them. Don't try to convince them of how badly you've missed them too. And remember, you should be having some reservation. This person broke up with you. They're coming back. You need to at least know if they're serious about this, and you need to move slowly because this person just hurt you and they don't deserve to simply get it all back at once. Mostly for your own protection because you don't want to dive back in with this mind, heart, body, and then lose it again. And so you need to move slowly. And they may push you because they're wanting that validation. They're wanting you to say, I'm so glad you came back. I still want you just as bad as I did, which means you are just as attractive as you thought you were the day you dumped me. Yes, of course they want to hear that. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want the validation, the ego stroke? But you've got to decide, do you want to make them happy in the moment? Because sometimes they'll get angry if you're not pushing enough, if you're not saying enough, if you're basically not welcoming them back in a way that shows them they never had to worry about anything to begin with. Yeah, that's irritating because they want to feel that they are that super duper attractive like they were a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was they broke up with you. You can't let them do it. Just because they get mad at you in the moment, it doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing, and it doesn't mean you're going to lose them. Sometimes people get mad. Sometimes people get mad at me. Whereas you don't want to antagonize someone or make them mad for no reason. Standing your ground, living in your truth, is something that is worth it, even if it makes them mad. And you know what? They will get over it. And they will see you as stronger for not having kissed their butt and made them feel like they can just toss you aside, and with the snap of a finger, you'll come right back to their legs like a little puppy dog. What your ex says when they break up with you doesn't mean it's permanent. It doesn't mean they will always feel that way. Trust that, and trust that no matter what, you will be fine. This has been Coach Lee, and as always, thank you for watching.